This episode is brought to you by Padaris, empowering transport planners everywhere. See padaris.com/podcast for details. Today's guest is a well-known name and face in the world of planning, design and management of major development projects, is an ex-chairman of Colin Buchanan and Partners, founding partner of Andreas Markides, and lately in 2016 founder and now chairman, of course, of Markides Associates based in SE1, now employing over 30 staff. A graduate of civil engineering from Salford Uni, a transport planning master's follows from Imperial. For 3 years, you served on the committee of the Thames Valley branch of the Institute of Civil Engineers, and you were the chairman of that association for the year 89 to 90. You was president of the CIHT for 2017 to 18, and is currently a trustee of that institution. You're also a founding member of the Academy of Urbanism. In 2014, you acted as planning commissioner for the island of Cyprus, your homeland. And recently this year, you had published your first UK book, Urban Myths. That's one hell of a career and still going strong. Andreas Markides, welcome to the show.
I'm pleased with you, Scott. Thank you for inviting me. It's my first ever podcast. New experience at the ripe old age of 64.
Well, it's great to have you on. Hey, listen, when you hear your career or your achievements replayed like that by someone else, what goes through your mind when you hear what you've accomplished over the past, in your case, some 40 years?
I don't look at them as achievements. I look at them as a very rich journey. So, and in particular, I look back and think of that young graduate in 1984, timid, uncertain, even fearful about his future. And the following 40 years or so have been happy and professionally fulfilling. You know, I've been learning every year, every moment. And that's really been very satisfying.
Yeah, fantastic. Now, look, before we move on, you and I have got a connection. The beautiful island of Cyprus. I got married in Paphos back in 2006 and return every other year. Do you still go back and still see family?
Yes. I go regularly. My father and a lot of relatives still live there, so I go there. I think it's important not to cut off your roots. And, I grew up in Cyprus. I left and came to England when I was 16. I still get inspiration from Cyprus and its customs. Yes, and I think it's important that I maintain that connection.
Absolutely, yeah. Beautiful place. I actually love going there. Say every other year. Not doing so well in the football, I might add. I think you got beaten 6-0 by Spain last night and 3-0 at Scotland. Maybe we shouldn't talk about that.
Yes.
Need some help there.
You can't be perfect at everything, Scott. We can't be perfect at everything.
Hey, listen, what's still getting you out of bed in the morning, though, Andreas? After all this time, what's the drive or what's the motivation?
Other than my children, of course. Professionally, there are two things really that I'm very passionate about. One is naturally my own consultancy. I want to keep driving that consultancy forward. I want us to remain at a high professional level and to remain happy. I believe that a happy workforce is very important. So that's one of the things that really matter to me. And the other one, my other passion is that of placemaking and sustainable communities. I never thought of myself as just another engineer. I've been fortunate to have worked with some good people who have taught me the value of, good placemaking, starting with Colin Buchanan, because I did 22 years at Colin Buchanan and Partners. And that was one of his fundamental principles, the relationship between land use planning and engineering. So yes, I am very passionate about the world that we live in and the world that we create, and I want to continue to help to bring that about.
Brilliant. Your first UK publication, I just happen to have one of the early release signed copies. Thanks very much for sending that over. I can thoroughly recommend it to anyone curious. It kind of brings together, I think, the two of your passions, doesn't it? Greek myths or civilization, and of course, human behavior. I know you've been writing books for yourself, articles, poetry for quite a while now. What was the driver to bring out the book or release it now, though?
Yeah. Okay. As you said, Scott, I have always liked writing. So many years ago, it used to be in Greek. More recently, it's in English. And I write about things that trouble me, the different concepts, different ideas, different events. So, one evening or at the weekend, I will sit down and jot a few things down, primarily just to clear my own head. What do I think about, I don't know, human greed, for example, or what do I think about building of the Great Belt and issues like that. So I start jotting things down, and then it becomes an article, and so on. I've been doing a series of articles over the last 2 to 3 years on that basis, and one day I realized that I had done about 20 of them. And I thought, rather than have them scattered around my desk, why don't I put them into a collection? And
Absolutely,
that's what
yeah.
I've done with Urban Myths. I self-published. I thought I'm going to do 300 or so that I can give them to my close friends and colleagues. But I didn't count on the power of social media, I'm afraid, because people have been very kind. They've made some really good comments about the book, and that has meant a lot more people asking for it.
Well,
And
I
I'm in
understand. I
trouble
think
now.
most. I understand most of the first publications are either gifted. I'm one of the lucky ones to colleagues, friends, and family. So, but I understand there's another run going to go ahead. So perhaps we'll put a link below this or access to you, and perhaps when that's released, people can get a copy. I cannot recommend it enough. Just moving forward, Andreas, I was curious to ask was your higher education and then, of course, your career choice related to your personal journey back in 1974? Perhaps you can give us a bit of context for those that don't know.
Okay, yeah. I think you may be referring to 1974 and the invasion of Cyprus by Turkey. That was a huge event in my own life. I was 15 years old at the time when, for reasons we are not going to go into, Turkey invaded Cyprus. Cyprus was divided into two. But as a result of that, my family became refugees. We were displaced from our ancestral home. We went and lived in other people's homes for a while. We got clothes from the Red Cross and all of that. And you may say that such a catastrophic event may make you bitter, but I am not bitter at all. I'm just sad, really, that something like that happened, and particularly for my parents who lost the home that where the children were grown up in, and their orchards and all of that. But that thing also made my character. It made me strong, I believe. And it also made me realize that there are far better things in life than money, because you can lose your riches in just like that. So long as you maintain your dignity as a human being, you are still going to make it. And I'll tell you a little story. When it was 3 or 4 days after we were displaced, my father gathered me and my 4 siblings, and he said, we have just lost everything. I haven't got anything in my pockets, but I give you my word, all 5 of you will go on to study at a British university. And he managed to do that. So yeah, it's
and what an incredible man to.
that.
what an incredible man to keep to his word, because I know obviously you're very well accomplished in the world of transport and engineering. Your brother, I think, Costas, he's a very well-known university lecturer. So what an incredible man your
He's a
father must have
professor
been.
at London Business School. Yeah.
Professor Lovelace?
Yes.
Yeah. What an
No,
incredible
yeah,
man he must have
no,
been.
no. The reason I mentioned this story is because it's the event that has formed my character and made me really believe that we can build a better world even when you are at the lowest point. So, yeah.
Andreas, land use is constantly changing or evolving, right? I mean, in the 80s, we were building business parks or industrial parks, hypermarkets, multiplex cinemas, shopping centres, all with their associated space and demand for cars and car use. Are we still evolving with the current push of placemaking and sustainability, which means we could be wrong about our current journey when we look back in the next 20 years? How do we know what we're doing now is right?
Okay. I think that's an excellent question. And it summarizes really my journey over the last 40 years in transport planning. Because as you said, there have been momentous changes. So starting with the way we looked at car parking, I remember in the 80s, everybody wanted to build as many parking spaces as possible. And now it's almost the reverse. You know, we try and make the argument that we do not need car parking. And that gives the opportunity for the land to be used for something else, you know, either green spaces or more developments. Similarly, with the land uses, as you rightly said, in the 80s, we were building business parks. Then we moved on to, what was it? Multiplex cinemas. You know, that there was a time when the humble town hall where people used to go and watch movies, it wasn't enough for us. And we had to go to and experience the Hollywood dream in a multiplex cinema. Then we started to build offices. And I remember the big debate about the Arc. It was a building that was put forward to the as you came in from the west into London, and it was known as the Arc. That was a high-profile office building that has now been almost forgotten and overtaken by all the other tall buildings in the city. And then hypermarkets. You know, we used to go into the village shops, but then we changed. That wasn't good enough. We had to go into supermarkets and then hypermarkets. You know, out of town hypermarkets. So all the time we are changing. And you're right. You know, we look back and we say, you know, in the 60s, we used to build housing estates. How wrong were we? Now we're going to build better. And so it goes on. And it makes one ask the question, you know, are we wrong all the time? So every time we look back, we say, yeah, we've been doing things wrong and we need to change. Now, in the particular moment that we are now with our push for more sustainable and healthier communities, is it likely that in 20 years' time we're going to look back and say the same? Are we going to say, we got that wrong? We should never have believed in these idealistic notions of, you know, better communities and sustainability. You know, all of that was nonsense. Are we likely to be saying that? I personally do not think so. I believe that this is the the final leg of our journey. And we really need to stick to our guns in terms of sustainable communities. Because if we lose heart and don't continue with that approach, it could be the end of the world as we know it. I'm not evangelical about the climate crisis, but I really believe that this is the final leg, and we must stick to our guns and deliver sustainable and healthier communities.
This episode of Practical Perspectives is brought to you by Padaris. Planning, engineering, and stakeholder engagement seamlessly integrated into the cloud. To discover how Padaris is helping the likes of Arup, WSP, and Sistra plan smarter, faster, and more collaboratively, head over to padaris.com/podcast today. Tell me your thoughts on the 15-minute city idea, the current version, and I know it's not an original idea of his, but the current version penned at least by Carlos Marino. Other variants, of course, last in the 20-minute cities, weighing in a 50-minute neighborhood. Are we heading in the right direction with those?
Yeah. Well, the 15-minute city, again, I think some people look at it in the wrong way. The 15-minute city is nothing to do with dimensions. It's nothing to do with 15 minutes. It's nothing to do with distance. The 15-minute city is a concept. And behind that concept lies the desire by human beings to create better communities. So I don't see it as being a certain distance. I see it as being a livelier neighborhood where people live happily with each other. So that's the concept that we need to implement, and it's not so much an engineering concept; it's a social concept. It's a cultural concept. So all of us are responsible to make it happen: engineers, architects, urban designers, and politicians. So we need to look at that concept and say, look, it makes sense. Let's work to achieve it. The thing that I find peculiar is that everybody talks about Professor Morino in Paris and 15 minutes. There have been so many other similar experiments all over the world, even before the Paris one. So there are pockets around the world who are trying to implement that concept, which is excellent.
Yeah, and I think it doesn't get a good rap in the media. I think sometimes they only show you what wants to be seen, and I think it's more understanding why and the real reasons behind what we're trying to achieve, which perhaps not a lot of people understand. On that though, Andreas, who is winning right now today? Is it cars or people?
Definitely the car, I'm afraid. Yesterday, I actually took part in a webinar that organized by the Transport Planning Society about the 60 years of the publication of the Buchanan report, Traffic in Towns. On the back of that webinar, I flicked through the report again, and I was astounded to see that the key message of that report was be very, very careful about this monster we all love called the car, because it will ruin our environment and our lives unless we learn how to tame it. 60 years on, we haven't taken that advice. Not only have we failed to tame the car, it has actually taken over our lives. So the answer to your question is it's an easy one. The car is winning, I'm afraid, and we need determination, and we need very drastic measures to win the battle against the car.
Did I read somewhere that good design and better places give rise to happier people? I think I'm not sure whether I saw that in your book, but I'm going to quote you if I can. At this point, I should make it clear that the creation of better places is not only about the physical environment that we live in; it's also about the people that live and contribute to that environment. In other words, our community. A healthy and well-educated community living in a joyful place are the essential prerequisites for a happy life. What does that mean? Can you expand on that?
Okay, so this is my own personal philosophy, if you like. I have quoted that in a number of presentations I've made, and nobody has questioned me. They all took it to be correct, amazingly. That thought came to me. I'm on the board of the Academy of Urbanism, and with the Academy, I have been to see several places in Europe, how they do their own, sustainable communities. I've seen some inspiring places. And every time I see those places, I say to myself, we are behind in England. I just want to cry that we are not at the forefront of this crusade. But anyway, I was in Malmo in Sweden, and as we turned the corner, I saw in front of me this fantastic picture of a big square in front of the waterfront. No cars inside, lots of landscaping, lots of people sunbathing, sitting around, talking to each other, some of them dancing. And I stood looking at it and I said to myself, well, these guys, they cannot go wrong. These guys are so happy. And once they go home or back to work or whatever, they're going to build a better world. They're going to create a civilization. And in my mind, I contrast that to all the other places around the world that are going through turbulence. For example, 10 years ago, when we had the economic upheaval in Greece, many people probably still remember the riots in the streets of Athens and the burning of cars and breaking of the shops, etc. And, those people were not happy. They were angry people. And angry people are not going to build, a civilization. So the two images really are what gave rise to my thinking that if we build good places, we will end up with happy people, and those people will then create civilization.
Andreas, why don't you share some of the skill sets that you believe transport planners today need to have to kind of almost future-proof their careers?
Well, I think transport planning and highway engineering are at the crossroads at the moment. We could be marginalized, but I hope that we will not. We need to spread our wings, as a profession. We shouldn't just stay with just applying the British standards or whatever. We need to learn so much more, spread our wings, open our eyes to all these new ideas. So in my view, highway engineers need to become environmentalists. They need to become doctors. They need to learn about the carbon literacy. They need to learn about the importance of space and places and all of that. So only when we do that, will we be able to shape the world around us, and will we be able to convince the other professions that work with us that we have a meaningful place in that profession?
I'm not sure whether they've changed the syllabuses now or what they're teaching in universities, but surely that's where it all stems from, right? If we want to learn more about more sustainable world.
Yes. It's about the environment. It's about sustainability. It's about new technologies. All of that are very important. And of course, you're right. People practice whatever they learned, So universities have a lot to do with this, Engineers will practice and implement what they have learned at university.
What they've learned.
So if we had a wider syllabus, then they would be practicing something bigger. And really the education, the educational system represents the values of a society, what that society considers to be important. So it's very cyclical, isn't it? So values, education, and then the places that we create, and finally may or may not lead to happy people and civilizations. It's all interrelated.
Hey, what's the most common problem that you're up against in business right now?
I'm sorry to say that it's cheapness. People wanting a cheap product. There are people who to not value quality, and they just want to tick a box as cheaply as possible and let's move on. So cheapness and short-sightedness. Those people don't realize that their short-term gains will lead to bigger problems later on. So we need to be looking far ahead and valuing quality. Again, when I was in Eindhoven in Holland, the mayor who welcomed us there said, when we decided to rebuild our city, we said to ourselves, how are we going to do it? And they decided they were going to do it based on one word, the word quality. We want to create quality places that will be attractive to the most intelligent people in the world who will want to come and live in Eindhoven with their families. So they will want to have good parks, good hospitals, good streets. Only then will we bring the best brains here, and only then will we have a strong economy. So all of that was founded on the word quality, which is something that we overlook a lot of the time for the sake of short-termism and a cheap product.
What keeps you awake at night at the moment? What problems trouble you the most?
Clearly the future of my business. I'm 64, so I'll probably work for another 2 or 3 years, and then I I would like my consultancy to continue to thrive, and it's for that reason really that 2.5 years ago we introduced an EOT, Employee Ownership Trust. I very much believe that the people who make the business should get the rewards for it. So the Employee Ownership Trust means that the business no longer belongs to me or the original directors. It belongs to all the staff. So I want those staff to feel proud that they work at Markides Associates, and to always strive to be at the top of the profession, so that you get professional fulfillment and at the same time, a happy working environment.
Yeah, a strong workforce.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Tell me what advice you would offer perhaps to any lesser experienced transport planner than you, looking to advance quickly in your business or maybe even in the sector in general.
I was asked this question by my niece who finished university a few months ago. Uncle, she said, how will I be successful in my chosen profession? And my answer to her was very simple: make friends. So you need to make friends for 2 reasons. One, if you're working with friends, you will all enjoy the work. If it's people that you don't get on with, if it's enemies or whatever, it will be a completely different picture. So make friends so that you enjoy the work more, and make friends in order to grow your network and relationships. And it's those relationships really that will make the work for you, and make sure that you always have work and that you're growing and that you're being successful. So it's as simple as that. You need to have friendships.
How do you spot a highly competent transport planner? What are the signals? You obviously deal with a lot of people day to day, inside and outside the business. How do you recognize someone who's sharp?
Okay, this is very interesting. I'll give you a small example. When I first set up Markides Associates, it was me and 5 others. We needed staff, so we advertised, and amongst all the different CVs that we got, there was a 25-year-old lady whose CV said she had done psychology and Japanese at university. And I was intrigued by that. I thought, oh my God, what's this to do with higher engineering? So I asked her to come to the interview, and she was very, very impressive. She was very articulate, very confident. And when I said to her, what do you know about transport planning? She said, I'm really interested in its effects on society. I read a lot about it. I read in the newspapers. I read in the journals. I haven't got any university qualification, but I know enough and I'm passionate about it. So I gave her the job. And, 7.5 years later, she's one of our stars in the business. So what did I look for? I looked for passion. I looked for somebody who was confident, articulate. Those are the things really that I, in my view, far more important than technical knowledge. Technical knowledge is important, but all the other attributes that make the person are more important. I don't know if I should say this, but I also ask people at the interviews which football team they support. And if they say either Liverpool or Arsenal, they don't get the job.
I think you just wiped out half of any potential candidates in London there. So yeah, we might not include that. If she's still with you a while, though, you must be doing a terrific job to keep her motivated, engaged. So tell me how you maybe inspire the staff to stay engaged. Is there a Markides motivation plan or a particular management style?
Okay. It doesn't come down to making motivational speeches or, going to a management class. I have never been to a management class. You mentioned my younger brother, Professor Andreas Markides at London Business School, who many times has said to me, come to my class, you learn a lot. And he's very angry with me. I've never been. So I've learned the hard way how to manage people and motivate them. Motivation really, in my view, is a result of how you conduct yourself on a day-to-day basis. So the way you go around the office and you have a little chat with people, you pat them on the back, say, well done, etc. And they watch you. They watch how you behave. And they get inspiration quietly without you having to make any big speeches.
Before I let you go, Andreas, what's next for you yourself personally and of course, Markides Associates?
Well, I've already said about my business. I'm hoping that it will continue to grow. A lot of people have said to me, even though a small consultancy, you punch above your weight, and I'm glad for that. I want us to continue to be at the top of the profession, to always learn. I don't want other people to learn before we do. We need to be breaking new ground as a business all the time. And personally, I may work for another 2 or 3 years, but I would like at some point to spend more time with my family, traveling I love, and writing, of course, which is my secret passion.
Secret passion. Andreas, I've learned so much, not only just listening to you today, but I've read the book twice. Believe it or not, you're very inspiring. Some of the words and the work that you've done is brilliant, and I want to thank you so much for writing the book and, of course, giving me your time on this podcast today. Thank you so much. It's been a real pleasure.
It's been my pleasure, and then well done for taking this initiative. It's really pioneering, and you should be very proud.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Bye for now.
Bye.
Thanks for listening. Today's episode of Practical Perspectives has been proudly supported by Podaris, the trusted toolkit empowering transport planners everywhere to plan faster, smarter, and more collaboratively. Experience the future of transport planning today at podaris.com/podcast.